I hope this is. I don't see any evidence in
I got some more people coming in just a second. thank you all for taking the time out to be here today. I'm Kevin Harrison. I'm the Director of Transportation for South Alabama Regional Planning Commission. One of our programs is the Mobile MPO. Our purpose today is to solicit comment from the public for an amendment to the 25-year long-range plan known as Envision 2045. This is our contact information. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Aldot. So I'm giving you my contact information now. Comment forms are out front and are to be submitted on those forms, or they can be submitted at mobilempo.org, where there's a online comment form submitted. SARC staff at Mobile MPO is Anthony Johnson, Tom Piper, and Monica Williamson, and we'll be manning some of the long-range plan posters after an open house session, and Aldot forms will also be manning as well. So the presentation is live on YouTube. If you're watching, we request that your comments on the long-range plan be submitted on the MPO comment forms. We can mail them to you or online at mobilempo.org. Comments on social media, on YouTube, are not going to be counted. We want these comments to be documented in writing. After the presentation, Aldot SARC employees will be available around the room, open house session to answer any questions. We want these questions and comment forms to be presented to our MPO members in writing. So the deadline is May 26th for comments. May 27th, I will provide the MPO members with a full draft document with all of the comments and the appendix and the summary of the comments prior to the MPO vote. So I want to start really into what is an MPO. There are 14 MPOs in the state. An MPO is a metropolitan planning organization. Any urbanized area over 50,000 has to have a metropolitan planning organization. There's 408 MPOs in the country. Anytime there are federal transportation dollars to be spent in an urbanized area, that has to be voted on by the MPO members. First, we'll go through an advisory committee for recommendations, and then those federal transportation dollars will go for the MPO board for approval. Whether it's federal dollars for resurfacing, for buying a bus, building a bridge, adding a lane, it has to go through this process. I don't know if you can see that. That's our 16 members on the Mobile MPO. Mayor Stimson is our chairman, Commissioner Hudson is our vice chair, and all the mayors of the urbanized area and some city council members. This is our study area in Mobile County. In the pink, the yellow area is the urbanized area defined by the 2010 census. 2020 census, we're expecting that data very shortly, and that may change. Anything in the pink area in Mobile County, any federal surface transportation dollars got to go through this process and have to be voted on by the MPO. The Eastern Shore MPO has the same process, and their study area is in the pink, their urban area is in the yellow as well. We're expecting changes to that urban area also. So what's the life of a federally funded transportation project? First, it's got to be born out of the Transportation Long Range Plan, the 25-year plan. Once it's included in the plan, it can move to the Short Range Plan, which is the Transportation Improvement Program. That is more or less like a checkbook of all your federal transportation projects. The money has got to be in there in order to spend money on the project. And then from there, implementation. So as part of this long range plan amendment, the Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project, at the June 2nd MPO meeting, subsequent the addition to the long range plan, the Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project will be recommended to be included into the Transportation Improvement Program. So the long range plan is, we call it Envision 2045. It was adopted April 22nd, 2020. It's available at mobilempo.org. I don't have copies of it here. It's 350 pages long. You're welcome to download it. You can come by our office and we can give it to you. This is just an amendment to that plan, to the large plan. There's only 3 sections that really changed as part of this amendment. Highway facilities has changed because of the Mobile River Bridge and that caused slightly the Title VI, TJ, and the bicycle pedestrian facilities to change as well. So there's a commitment from AlDOT to have a shared use path on the Cochran Causeway as part of the I-10 Mobile River Bridge project. So the bicycle pedestrian facilities chapter of that large document will change as well. I want to give you kind of a timeline of the I-10 Mobile River Bridge. In 1996, SARC-C through the Mobile MPO contracted with Volcker to do the first feasibility study. It's a very large document. February 2000, we adopted the 2025 long-range plan, and it included the Mobile River Bridge. Subsequent, all the three past long-range plans all included the bridge. It was not at the cost that it was then, at a lower cost estimate. It did not include the new Bayway. It did not include the vertical clearance or the elevation that's required for this new bridge. October 2018, we adopted the long-range plan amendment to the Destination 2040. That was the previous long-range plan. We added an amendment for the revenue scenario of tolling for that bridge. August of 2019, the bridge entered the TIP. It failed due to the public opposition of the prescribed tolling scenario. In April 22nd, 2020, MPO adopted the 2045 long-range plan without a bridge. There's not an agreed funding scenario for the bridge, so the bridge was actually considered not a fiscally constrained document, but was a visionary project. And in March, the joint MPO, Five Rivers, had a joint press release, the Mobile MPO and Eastern Shore MPO, supporting phase one of the I-10 Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project. Continuing on, we are here today, May 12th, for the public meeting to gain public comment on the long-range plan and TIP amendment. The Eastern Shore MPO is having their public meeting on May 19th. At the same day, the Mobile MPO is having their subcommittee meeting to make recommendations to the MPO on the amendment. May 26th will be the deadline for comments at 5 o'clock. May 27th will include those comments in an appendix in a summarized section of the amendment and distribute to the MPO members several days prior to the MPO meeting on June 2nd. The June 2nd, the Mobile MPO will meet and vote on the amendment. June 9th, Eastern Shore will do the exact same thing and vote on their amendment. And to be determined, the PE can begin, and there will be more public meetings concerning that. And finally, September 1st, 2022, the infant grant has a deadline for the project to start. I don't know if y'all can see this. We've got large maps over at the back. This is the amendment. The MPO funded projects, there's $332 million of MPO funded projects. Mobile MPO, we program $10 million a year, 25 years, with a compounded increase gives us about $330 million. We've programmed that in the next 25 years. That remains the same in the amendment. $165 million for state and other local projects, and then $82,700,000. That's the Mobile County pay-as-you-go projects for local projects. What we're adding to the long-range plan is the I-10 Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project, PE and construction. The construction is $675 million. The PE is $44,709.5 million. This includes $7,075,000 PE in construction for a shared use path from 165 to Cochran Service Road as part of AlDOT's commitment. So that's over $1.2 billion in the next 25 years. Our long-range plan and all the long-range plans basically in the country are based on a travel demand forecast model. And this is kind of, this map kind of depicts, we don't build another project in the next 25 years, what the road system is going to look like. It doesn't show it very good in the corner, but the Cochran Causeway is congested. The Bayway, the Bankhead, basically your summer Friday afternoon traffic every day if nothing is done in the next 25 years. Our visionary projects, these are the projects that are needed to fulfill all the capacity demands. It's about $2.4 billion worth of additional projects. As part of the amendment to the long-range plan, we are adding phase 2 and 3 of the I-10 Mobile River Bridge and Bayway projects. That's about $1.7 billion added to that. In addition, we recognize that US 45 recently has a desired need to be improved and widened. So we do have that as a desired project, as well as West Lee Street is recognized to have a desired extension to Shelton Beach Road. Those are amendments to the visionary process. The Transportation Improvement Program, this is a short-range plan. Again, this is kind of like your checkbook of all the federal projects. Projects, in order to be funded, have to be included in the long-range plan and the TIP. And again, all the projects have to be voted on. The TIP is made up of all the federal surface transportation funding categories. There's numerous categories in the document. Again, phase 1 of the Mobile River Bridge is recommended to be included in the TIP subsequent conclusion to the long-range transportation plan. This will happen at the same meeting on June 2nd, the Mobile MPO. So I do want to address some comments real quick. Bridge and the Bayway has to be included in the long-range plan and the TIP in order to be eligible for any federal funding. This is to include the $125 million infra grant, the current discussions of a $2.5 trillion infrastructure bill, and any other future funding possibilities. So if there's any chance of this project getting federal funds, it's got to be included in the long-range plan, and it's got to be included in the TIP. These future funding scenarios can be modified. We're modifying the long-range plan right now. So it is possible to modify these long-range plans. We update them every 5 years, and TIPs are almost continually updated, and we produce a new TIP every 4 years. Also want to address the comment that this is an interstate. The federal government said pay for it, and that is not exactly accurate. The interstate system was from the 50s. I think the last interstate was completed in the 1980s. So the interstate system is built. The states own and operate the interstates. States are apportioned federal funding to maintain these interstates. And the state of Alabama has not apportioned enough money to meet the needs in the state of Alabama. 1993 was the last federal gas tax. 1993, the minimum wage rate was $4.25. Concrete costs 3 times as it does now, or 3 times less. Asphalt, labor, everything that cost less than 1993. So I also want to touch on the state of Alabama federal funding expenditures and where the state of Alabama, how that funding goes. The state receives about $840 million in federal transportation funds for surface, and this is where it goes. So the $840 million is based on population and allocation to the state. There's $90 million that goes to aid the local governments. Part of that is the $10 million, the Mobile MPO program, and that goes to the other 14 MPOs in the state. There are federal aid county balances. There's a debt service payment to the ATRIP program. The Garvey bond for the Central Business District, I see a lot of comments that, well, I see Birmingham got this money. We're not getting this money. That bridge in Birmingham was falling apart. There's chunks of concrete coming off of that bridge. In essence, that Bayway was destroyed by a hurricane in Birmingham. That's debt service payment for the $42 million. Safety funds, that is strictly for safety, interstate maintenance. There's a list of prioritized interstates that have to be resurfaced. $171 million for that. There's not enough money for all the interstate that has to be maintained in the state. State route resurfacing as well, $224 million. System enhancement, which is your sidewalks and your IT projects. Bridge replacement are strictly for bridge and statewide planning. So this is what ALDOT has to deal with, and this project is a $2 billion project. I don't see $2 billion in there, and I think it needs to be said that Alabama doesn't receive enough funding. I think ALDOT and the local leaders need to be commended knowing that there's a problem, knowing that there's a lack of funding, and not doing anything about it is not responsible. So it's a 4-lane interstate in a large urban area. The traffic is coming. The Wallace tunnels are currently way over capacity, with over 100,000 cars a day projected in 2045. Current average annual traffic in the tunnels is 72,000. So the through traffic is going to increase about 50%. The through trucks, those are trucks coming from Florida to Texas, are going to increase about 56%. And there's good things happening in South Alabama. Yesterday they announced Baldwin County surpassed population in Montgomery County. We've got Airbus also. The steel industry in the state of Alabama is about to explode. And we can't let this 4-lane interstate in a major urban area be a detriment to our economy. So something's got to be done. ALDOT has presented the MPO with a project to add to the long-range plan. That's what we're here today to present comments on. With that, I'm going to introduce Evan Curry with ALDOT to talk about the project.
All right, getting everything set up. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Kevin. Now I'll go over the Mobile River Bridge phased approach that is presented in the long-range transportation plan. And just to build off what Kevin just went over, once the project is added back to the long-range plan, transportation plan until ALDOT can better define each phase, further design and study the impacts to traffic, and update the environmental documentation to incorporate phasing. And like Kevin said, bringing the project back to the long-range transportation plan will make the project eligible to receive federal funds. Any changes to the project, traffic distribution, or tolling will be presented to the MPOs and the public at future public meetings. Whether or not the proposed changes are incorporated into the project will depend on the feedback from the public, coordination with the MPOs, and the Federal Highway Administration. We anticipate it will take about 6 to 9 months to complete the additional studies for phasing the project, and at mid to late 2022, we would be able to start construction for the first phase. The FEIS and ROD was signed in August of 2019. All commitments from the approved FEIS and ROD will still be completed as part of the phased project concept. Once we have the project back on the tip, ALDOT can study the effects of phasing and the changes in the toll scenario to determine if additional mitigation measures are needed. So what exactly is the phased approach for the Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project? Well, we're studying to look to break the project into 3 phases. The first phase shown here will include building the high-level approaches and main span bridge over the Mobile River and striping it for 2 lanes in each direction. In between where you see the call out for the eastbound Mobile River Bridge and the temporary ties to the existing bayway, we would drop one of the 2 lanes on the new bridge to have a connection to the existing bayway. From that point, we will restripe the existing I-10 bayway to 3 lanes in each direction to exit 35. We will also build the Virginia Street and Broad Street interchanges to handle state docks access. At the top is a typical section of the new bridge over the Mobile River, showing the lanes and shoulder widths. We'll have 2 11-foot lanes, a 2-foot inside shoulder, and a 5-foot outside shoulder. Below is another typical showing how the existing bayway would be restriped to accommodate 3 lanes in each direction. There'll be 1 12-foot lane on the inside, then 2 11-foot lanes, And then each shoulder will have a 2.5 foot shoulder. The current construction estimate for phase one is $675 million. The funding breakdown includes the $125 million infra grant, $250 million in state funding, and $300 million in loans to be paid back from tolls. What is being proposed in the LRTP amendment is to pay back the loans by tolling large trucks $15 to use the new bridge. Trucks would also be prohibited to use the Wallace tunnels, and all other vehicles shown in gray would be prohibited to use the new bridge. Also, as part of the tolling study, we will review how allowing all vehicles the option to use the bridge and pay a small toll will affect traffic and funding. Under this scenario and all phase scenarios studied, existing routes, including Wallace Tunnel, Bankhead Tunnel, the Cochran Aftertown Bridge, the Causeway, and the Bayway, will remain free for passenger cars. Project phasing benefits, it will be able to allow us to start construction sooner and provide congestion relief. It removes the hazardous materials detour route from Africatown and provides additional capacity for trucks crossing the river. So now I'll go over what all the phases are with this phase approach. Again, we have the first phase, which includes the eastbound bridge over the Mobile River and restriping the existing bayway with building the Broad Street and Virginia Street interchanges. Phase two will include building the westbound high-level approaches and main span bridge over the Mobile River and doing interchange improvements at West Tunnel Interchange. Phase three will include rebuilding the I-10 Bayway and interchange improvements at East Tunnel Interchange, Mid-Bay Interchange, and Eastern Shore Interchange. So, thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. We have staff here to have one-on-one conversations with you to answer any questions you might have on the proposed project. Please remember, like Kevin said, to fill out a comment form either here at the meetings or online. And that concludes our presentation for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Question. Okay.
Yes, sir.